The Powers Project.
Hi, Jeannie. How are you today?
I am great, and it's great to be on a podcast that's looking for solutions to big problems.
We do. We look for, and the funny thing is that on this show, we have found solutions to many of the world's problems. I know many of them won't be implemented because people don't want to do what it takes. However, the solutions you have for this particular problem, I think people are going to be highly interested in and want to take advantage of what they learned here today with you. So I'm
Well,
looking.
people are concerned about their kids because they want to make sure that their kids are all set up for financial solvency and for having a great career, and they want their kids to be happy. And so this topic is a great thing for us to be talking about today. Tell me, you have kids of your own?
I do. I have two, but they're grown and they're way past college age. Believe it or not, I have a hard time believing that. In fact, I was going. I know a lot of people who are going to be listening and watching this episode today. They're going to go, "Where were you when I was going to school, or when my kids were getting ready for school?" And they're going to be kicking themselves, going, "God, I wish I would have known about Jeannie back then." So,
Yeah.
but you have solutions for everyone from people from kids who are in diapers all the way up to people who have careers and may want to go back to school for
Yeah.
grandparents, for everybody. So let's start with telling everyone first that you're an academic strategist. So why don't you tell us what exactly that is, how you got into it, like what in the world were you doing beforehand, and you go, ah, I got something I really want to do. Like, what excited you about this and got you into this, and how long
Well,
have you been doing it?
a little thumbnail sketch. So I spent 25 years helping students apply to very competitive law schools, medical schools, graduate schools, and business schools. And every time I have one of these clients, I have to have a debt discussion with them. I have to say, how much student loan debt do you have right now if we're looking at the cumulative so far? And sometimes they would say, I have $180,000 right now. And then my jaw would just drop. And some of these kids, I had to say to them, you actually can't go to medical school now because you would never be able to pay off all your medical school debt and all your undergraduate debt on a doctor's salary. And we have to find some other career that would work for you. And this is heartbreaking. And this is not why I got into this business of helping kids so that I could break their hearts. And what would really make me mad is when the students would say, I'd say, how did you get that much debt? And they would say, well, my parents or my guidance counselor, or this really burns me, a really expensive educational consultant hired by the family told me that if I went to the super expensive school that wasn't giving me any help, I'd have a better chance of getting into medical school. And that's not even true. And I know it's not true because I help students get into top 20 medical schools who went to Joe Blow podunk drinking school. And it's not even hard for me to do that. So I'm doing this all day at my website, getintomedschool.com. And I, besides these heartbreaking stories, I have had some of the most strategic kids in the country come through my office. So sometimes I'd say, how much student loan debt do you have if we're looking at the cumulative? And they'd say, I have zero. And I would say, you have zero? How did you do that? And then they would say, oh, I work for a company that had tuition reimbursement. I didn't even have to work full time. I just worked part time and they just gave me a paycheck. Plus, they sent a check to help pay my college tuition. Or they would say, I do a dual enrollment college classes in high school. Yeah, they counted for high school credit and college credit at the same time. I walked across the stage at my high school graduation with 2 years of college credit already done. And I got paper out and I'm writing this down as fast as I can because this is what consultants do, Kurt. We get fantastic ideas from one client and then we charge the next person by the hour to hear that same information. So I had a drawer stuffed full of all these great ideas, and I added on my own research, and then wrote the book Launch: How to Get Your Kids Through College Debt Free and into Jobs They Love Afterward. So now I wear both hats, and we're helping kids all across the country and parents. I deal with parents of kids ages 12 to 26, and we're getting kids through debt free, and we're saving parents retirement.
Wow. And see, I know there are people with their ears perked up right now who are going, okay, so tell me, how do we do this now? And let me ask you this, because you wrote this book Launch. I remember many years ago, this guy wrote this book and it had all these government programs and stuff. It was like that thick. It had to be probably 6 inches thick. And I remember looking at it and going through it because there were all these programs where you were supposed to be able to get grants and loans and things like that for a million different things. I was like, I'm not looking through this entire book. So
Thanks.
your book that thick? I mean, or do you have like a clip note of the ideas that people
You
can
know,
go through?
that just sounds, doesn't that just sound, a book that is that thick and has just government things in it? It sounds
Right,
like the most boring thing in the world.
exactly.
And what launches is that's like a field guide that parents only read a tiny little bit about every 3 months as their kids are growing up. So the titles have chapters like uh, December of 12th grade, May of 8th grade, September of ninth grade. And it's me popping in every 3 months or so and saying, you know what, here are some things you could do right now that could set your kids up for debt-free college. Just ignore everything else in this book, but just think about doing a couple of little things. And can I give you an example?
Yes, please do.
So, parents of 10th graders, January of 10th grade, there's a little segment from me in a little chapter, and it says, hey, what you might want to do right now is contact the college counselor at your high school and see if your child could sign up for dual enrollment classes that are going to happen in 11th and 12th grade. And this is where they take the college classes for real college credit, and it counts for high school and college credit at the same time. And I am there speaking to the parents when their kids are quite young and saying, hey, psst, this is the time to ask about that. And here's the language to use when you go to the school to ask about that. And I know you've got listeners, Kurt, from all over the country. So I'll just tell you, for parents to figure out if this is allowed in their state, parents can Google the name of their state and the words dual enrollment, or sometimes it's called concurrent enrollment. And they'll get directly to the state's Department of Education website, and they can see what all the rules are and see if the state will pay for it. And that way the parent is really informed when they go in and talk to the college counselor about this. So what parents tell me is this is not overwhelming. It's not hard. It feels like you have a friend with you on the journey, and it's just a little tiny bit every 3 months. Now, I bet you're going to ask me, if there's a chapter in the book called May of 8th grade, what about parents who got kids in 11th or 12th grade right now? Are they late to the party?
Right. Well, I know there are people out there thinking, okay, what about 11th and 12th grade?
Yes. Yes, I know that this is going to be, well, first I'm going to answer this way. It's not too late. It's never too late to jump in and start taking some steps that could be helpful. But to make this really super easy, I have a little 10-minute video that I provide, and it's all based on the age of your kid. And in this, it's fast paced and it's funny. And in this little 10-minute video, I say, hey, if you've got an 11th or 12th grader right now and you just picked up this book, maybe you just got it at the library, here's what you do. You just jump straight to this chapter and just ignore everything else in the book and just start from where you are and go forward. And then I'll say in that little video, but you may want to go back and look a little bit at chapter 10 and just fill in that, just read that one, but just blow off everything else in the book. It's okay. This is not like a cake where if you leave out the flour, it's going to flop. This is like a buffet of possible ideas that you could use. There's one mom who wrote a review on Amazon, and she said, we got this book when my child was a senior in high school. We used only 1/8 of an inch of the pages. And we still save thousands and thousands of dollars on college costs. And here's how people get that video, okay? Because parents are going to want to know this. I have this super fun free weekly email newsletter, has a helpful article every week. It is absolutely free. Anybody can get it. And you just go to get it, you go to bit.ly/easy launch instructions. And I think you're going to put that right in your show notes for this podcast. And right at
the links, and I have all your links, and I love the way you have everything set up. She knows what she's doing. Like you're organized, and so all the links to all your sites for people, they'll be able to find them at the bottom of the podcast or on the YouTube channel. You'll be able to find all your links there. So,
Love
but
it.
do discuss the
Great. Anyone who just signs up for my free weekly email newsletter at bit.ly/easy launch instructions, and that's all lowercase, all one word, you immediately get a friendly email back from me, and it says, hey, here's your free gift. You get these little videos, easy launch instructions. And some parents who can't afford to buy this book, they just get it at the library. Any librarian will order it for you. And then these little videos that you get are a great introduction, and you feel like you've got a friend on the journey. And then it's me saying, don't do all of this. Just blow off most of it. Just jump right here. This is all you need to know. Let the rest go. And parents tell me that feels very, very reassuring.
Yes, it would. I was going to tell you that's the kind of book I like, where you can right where to go for the part that has to do with you. That's a great book. To go back, you were talking about doing dual uh, uh, credits for college and high school, right? But
Yes.
you're not talking about the advanced placement program.
Hey, that's a great question.
I know you're not a fan of it, right?
Did your kids do any advanced placement classes called AP?
No.
Okay.
Why are you
I'm not a big fan of the AP program.
Why?
And I'll tell you why. I have actually written an article about this. And if you Google my last name, which is Burlowski, and the words advanced placement, a person can find an article that I wrote on this. Here's the problem. Kids are told this story. You take an AP class. It's harder than the other classes, but if you do well on a test at the end, you will get free college credit. And the sad thing is that only about 48% of kids that take an AP class end up getting the promised college credit. Maybe sometimes they just don't do well on that test at the end, even though they're trying hard. Or what's typically happening is colleges are saying, we don't want to take those credits. I talked to a girl, I was helping her apply to medical school, and she was a Cornell student, and she had taken 14 AP classes and scored well on all the tests. I said, did Cornell take any of those? Not a one, she said. They didn't take a single one of them. And so the reason I like dual enrollment better is dual enrollment is real college classes taught by real college professors, and they're much more transferable. And wow, if a student gets to some college and they say, we don't want your dual enrollment credits, what I say is, just tell that school there are 7,000 other schools in the United States that would love to have a high achieving student like me that figured out how to take college courses in high school. I have already proven myself with college work. I should be a hot commodity for you and highly desirable. You should be competing to get me with my 2 years of college credits all done already. And students are actually finding this to be the case. Colleges are saying, wow, you got all these college credits in high school. We think that you'd actually be an asset to our campus, and we're going to give you extra money if you will agree to come here, because you're the kind of person we're looking for.
When you say extra money, in what form?
Well, the way that applying for college money works is everybody fills out the FAFSA financial aid form, and FAFSA, it's the free application for federal student aid. I want every family to fill that out October 1st. Every year that the family might have any possibility of having a kid in college the following fall. And essentially the family uses information from old tax returns, and they put their information on this form, and we consider it to be a safe process. And they put information in there about their income and their assets. And then the system crunches the numbers and figures out how much this family can probably afford to pay for college. And if they can only pay this much, but the cost is this much, the system figures out how to fill in that gap that the family can't afford to pay. The problem is that the system's going to try to fill in with a lot of loans, and we want to set the family up by doing clever planning starting as early as possible. I mean, 8th grade would be nice, but whenever they can start, some clever strategies so that it's not necessary to use loans to fill in that gap. And there are so many clever ways to get college paid for besides just applying for financial aid from the government, applying for scholarships, saving up money in advance. There are all kinds of more clever ways than that. And when I say that people are giving students money for college, colleges have some discretionary funding that they can use. They can use it to attract some great students that they would love to have. And everyone thinks it's going to be the kids who have the highest grades and test scores. No, actually, the most interesting kids are not always the ones with the highest possible grades and test scores. Sometimes there are other things that are making these students very interesting. And what I love to have happen is when the admissions office goes down to the financial aid office and they say, hey, you do what you have to do to get this kid here. We want this kid on our campus because she is going to enrich the college experience for other students. She's probably going to do things later in life that are going to bring notoriety to our campus in a positive way. We want to have her here. So that's what I mean by gets you, your achievement in high school can get you more money for college.
Well, I'm glad you said that there are other strategies besides saving, because I'm sure you're well aware there are a lot of people out there who just they're barely making ends meet, and to save
Right.
money for their kids to go to college is next to impossible. I mean, it's like, do we eat tonight, or do I put
Yeah.
money away in my kids' college fund? So so you're saying that even if you don't have the ability to save, there are still strategies out there for people who to get their kids in school.
Oh my goodness. And I don't want anybody to feel bad or feel guilty like we're not putting money in our kids' college fund. And some parents are looking at the cost of college and thinking they have to somehow save up the money in order to be able to pay all that. And that is just simply not how it works. There are lots of clever strategies, but I don't want to sound like a big, thick government book like you described earlier with a lot of boring work for people to do. I don't want it to be a full-time job for parents to figure this out. And so that's why, from my perspective, I do everything I can to stretch out the preparation and the clever strategy. I want to stretch it out over as long a period of time as possible. Because if you just have to do a little bit here and a little bit there and a little bit 3 months later, it's not overwhelming. It actually starts to feel like a fun, exciting game. And my hope for your people that are listening today, because you're a big problem solver, Kurt, I hope that I won't just be a flash of inspiration across the sky like a shooting star. And I'm here today and they never hear from me again. I really hope people will open up my free weekly email newsletter every Monday morning so I can inspire you and help you on this journey like a friend holding your hand all the way up the mountain. And people say, I mean, I got guidance counselors that open that and private admissions consultants, and people are sharing the articles in there. And we're really using this to change the world for parents and students, even if they can't save a penny, even if they don't get any government financial aid or they think they don't, even if their kid doesn't get a single scholarship. We still want to make all these other strategies available to kids and parents.
Okay, so you notice how this is going to come across to some people. It's going to be almost like, if it sounds too good to be true, then it is. And so one of the things, and when I found you, I was like, I want to make sure that she's the real deal. So I need to know what her credentials are. But when looking into it, I saw that you were featured in publications like USA Today, U.S. News World Report. You were in Huffington Post and CBS News. So I was like, you've been around. You've been doing this for what, 25 years?
Well, the helping students apply to medical school and law school that I've been doing for 25 years. And the I wrote this book, Launch How to Get Your Kids Through College Debt Free and Into Jobs They Love Afterward. And I was writing that during 2016. It came out in 2017. A new second edition is going to be coming out in a year, because the FAFSA form is changing a little bit, but all my followers are still really following the directions in the first edition. But what really gives me my credential for this? What really gives me my credential is seeing how all this plays out in the lives of students when they're done with college. How does all this affect you? If you go to community college to save money for your first 2 years, and then you transfer to a 4-year institution, does that hurt your chances of getting into medical school or law school? These are big decisions for parents and students to be making when they don't know the answers to questions like that. Well, I've sat on the other side of the mountain. I've sat over there where the students are applying to medical school and law school and highest caliber graduate schools and PhD programs. I'm the person who can tell you with authority that going to community college will not hurt your kid one bit. Not for career, not for getting a great job, not for medical school or law school or PhD programs at the highest levels. And I actually written an article about this that I love, and it's called "Can Community College Lead to a Master's Degree?" And I love it. And anyone can find it by Googling my last name, which is Burlowski, and the words community college. I'm a huge fan of start out, get all the cheap credits, and then transfer a whole 2-year associate's degree to a 4-year school. And you can save a massive amount of money that way. And my credential as an academic strategist, you can believe me when I say this will not hurt you. But you know what kids hear? And Kurt, tell me if you think your kids ever heard this when they were young. If you don't get into a good college, you won't be able to get a good job when you graduate.
Of course. I mean, that's what when I was growing up, that's what you heard as well, and
that's what they told you, and that's what they told your kids. And you know what? It's not even true. You do not have to go to a so-called good college to get a good job. And honestly, don't we all know people who went to so-called bad colleges and they have great jobs?
Exactly. Well, that's one of the things I was going to tell you, is that in your book says how to get your kids through college debt-free and into jobs they love afterwards. So how do you first off, it's just amazing that you can get kids through college debt-free, but how do you get them into the jobs they love afterwards?
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad you're asking this. So I always say we never talk about college without also talking about the career it's going to lead to afterward. Because what we don't want is kids spending a lot of money on college and then they get out and they have no job prospects. This is the fastest way to rack up exorbitant student loan debt. Someone will get a 4-year political science degree from a private school and then realize there are no political scientist jobs in the world. And so then they go back and they do a 2-year nursing degree. And that's where you really, really start to rack up the debt. So I am a huge fan I want all my followers to have their kids do career assessments, real gold standard career assessments, not at the high school where they're just scored by a robot. No. Those are highly inaccurate and they actually really turn kids off. What we want is the student to sit with a human who's trained to administer the Myers-Briggs type indicator and the strong interest inventory and the strengths finder assessment, which is now called the Clifton Strengths Assessment. And we want to be able to have I don't do this. I have to refer out to this because I'm not certified. But we want a real human to sit with this kid and say, do you know that you have some amazing strengths? And we know this because the Clifton Strengths Assessment does not lie. And your personality type, man alive, you have got this capability where you would be amazing at this particular career. And your interest, we can just see if the world of work is a giant pie, your interests just keep going right to this certain slice of the pie. Why would we have you pursue some kind of career that's outside of your slice? And I am such a fan of this. I have 2 kids of my own. One is 19 and one is 21. And I had my kids do this when they were in 10th grade, which you have to be 15 years old to be able to take these assessments because of vocabulary development. Man alive, it was the best money I ever spent on these kids in their entire lives, because we know their strengths, we know what they're interested in, we know what their personality type is. And when these kids went off to college, and as a mother, I feel that umbilical cord stretching, for my son, it was stretching all the way across Lake Michigan. And, the thing that comforted me the most is I knew he was going to the place where he just absolutely should be. And he was going to be pursuing the thing he was going to be amazing at. And he had a way to get through it fast. And so setting a goal using these career assessments and then figuring out how to get there fast, like an arrow to a bullseye. It is just amazing how that builds confidence in kids and helps them to achieve at high levels, even if they seem like ordinary video game playing kids, unshaven, sitting on your couch. It's amazing what they can achieve when we help them to have this understanding of themselves. So I know your parents are the parents who are listening here, who have kids between the ages of 12 and 26, you're gonna be thinking, that is a great idea. Where do I learn more about that? In launch, and anyone can just get this at the library. Any librarian will order it for you. Go straight to chapter 13, and I explain this really, really well. And then for anybody who would like to have the career consultant that I took my own kids to, that I thought was the best money I ever spent on them in their lives, her name, the lady I used was Cindy Matson, and she is front and center right at the top of the approved consultants tab at JeannieBurlowski.com. And JeannieBurlowski.com is going to be in your show notes. Anyone can just look at that approved consultants tab. You can just go to Cindy Matson and say, I heard about you from Jeannie Burlowski, and I want these assessments for my kid, any kid between 15 and up, 26-year-olds, not too late. And she will say to you, get in line, because the number of people who have heard about me from the author of the book launch is, there's always a line to see her, but totally worth getting in line.
I could see that how that one piece of advice that you just gave could save people thousands of dollars, because I've known personally people who've gone to college for degrees to come out and go, this isn't what I want to do. And it's like my best friend went to school for journalism, came out and goes, I don't want to do this. And yeah, he has a 4-year degree. Now he's got a great job, but it has nothing to do with journalism. And he could have saved himself a ton of money, because he didn't have someone like you. He didn't have this assessment done. So he never knew what his strengths were. He thought he knew what he wanted to do. And we see this all the time. I know people who went to law school to come out and go, I don't want to be a lawyer. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is awful late to figure that out after spending all that money. So you still help people to get into med school and law school and business school and grad school. Are you able to save these people money as well?
Oh, yes, I do. As a matter of fact, I just had, I was on the phone with a client on Monday. He originally came to me for help applying to medical school. And as I'm telling him, okay, here's what we're going to do. Here are the steps. Man, he did not seem enthusiastic. And I said, you don't seem enthusiastic about this. And I'm really, really good at reading my clients and getting a kind of an emotional sense of, are they on the right track? And I said, you know what we're going to do? This is a big decision. It's a lot of money. I'm going to send you to take some career assessments. And we're going to see if this is really your thing. And it turned out he was deeply introverted. He loved having long periods of time for deep, quiet thought, and then bring his thoughts out and share them with other intelligent people. And not only that, he had tremendous jaw-dropping accomplishments in research as young as undergrad. And I said to him, do you realize that when you're a doctor, you're constantly interrupted all day long, and you're rushing, and you have to talk to a lot of stupid people? I said, I don't think you're going to be very happy as a doctor. But why did he pick medicine? Because he was a high achieving person, and it seemed like the hardest thing. It was the hardest thing he could think of. So he thought it must be the thing for him. And when I said, oh no, biomedical research, let's have you apply for a master's program in biomedical research. Look at how much money you will save. And so he did this amazing program in biomedical research. His accomplishments were off the charts. And then he was ready to apply for a PhD program. And wow, with all of his accomplishments, both from undergrad and from his master's program, he applied to the top 15 programs in structural biology in the United States. He got into Harvard, he got into Yale. They were all competing over him with trying to give him packages and fellowships and money to go there. It's all about full ride scholarships at that point. And anyway, he was very, and brings me to your point about, do I help people save money at that point? He got into so many of these programs that we had to have a big meeting where we weighed out the finances. And he got fantastic packages from Ivy League schools. But we actually chose a different school that was not an Ivy League school. Why? Because it was better. And we were not just choosing a program for him based on the name. We were choosing a program based on how could he thrive in his research and what kind of a mentor was there going to be there and what kind of a financial package were they giving him. That is a happy story. But for students who are never going to be my client and never going to come to getintomedschool.com, I like to help everyone in the world. So I got this article I wrote that is just kind of in a nutshell, the best things I tell my clients about getting their grad school paid for. And it's called 12 Ways to Get Your Grad School Paid For. And anyone can find it by Googling my last name, which is Burlowski, and grad school paid for. And there I've got these great ideas on how to grad school, medical school, law school, MBA programs, and business school, how to knock the costs down on those as well. Have you had anyone in your friend or family circle that ever went to law school or medical school or grad school or business school?
Yes, I've had a couple of friends who went to law school, but they actually ended up becoming lawyers. That's what they wanted to do. So yes, I don't know how much debt they had coming out of law school, though. I
Yeah,
never.
people try not to talk about that.
Well, they say, and again, I don't know who they are, but I've heard that unless you're going to medical school or law school, the debt that you're going to incur by going through college, it's never going to pay back the amount of money that the average person borrows in order to get their degree. And that, they're paying this off and until they're 50, 60 years old. I'm like, holy mackerel. I mean, that's
Well, I wouldn't say that you can never pay it off, because we've got students who are getting out of college. Their parents were not strategic about planning this out, as I want parents to be. And so students are getting out of college and they have a lot of student loan debt, and they're buckling down and working really hard to pay it off. Like they're taking a Dave Ramsey Financial Peace University class at their church, and they're learning about paying off debt using these baby steps. And then they're living in their parents' basements and they're working 3 jobs, and they're just putting as much money as they can toward their loan principal, and they're just getting out of it as fast as they can. And I have some articles for students who already have student loan debt, because of course I get a lot of these questions. So anyone can find an article I wrote called Kiss Your Student Loan Debt Goodbye. It's one of a 3-part article series. You can Google my last name, which is Burlowski, and the word KISS. This is a free article, and it is inspiring help for people who already have debt and they want to get rid of it. And I tell students, just figure out, looking at all the debt you have right now, what would have to happen for you to pay it off in 3 years? 3 years, you don't have kids right now. You don't have a family right now. You can afford to stay up late at night and work an extra job and put the money towards paying this off. Get out from indentured servitude as fast as you can. And boy, students who do this and they pay their debt off and then they start investing and they're watching their money grow for the future, they feel really empowered and excited, and it makes going to work every day more fun when you know you get to keep that money when you're done.
right. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's the key that you hit on, is that, you can do anything that you put your mind to, but it takes work sometimes, and sometimes it takes sacrifice. So if you really want that, you just have to be willing to work hard and to sacrifice, at least for the short term, to be able to reach the goals that you really want. Otherwise, you just let it draw out like like I know people have done for decades, and and then you're constantly under that pressure to always pay that loan off every month for years to come. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was speaking at a conference one time, and I had a woman who was in her 50s come up to me at the stage afterwards, and she said, "I'm a physician. And if I would have heard you speak when I was 17 years old, I would have gotten out of debt way long ago." She said, "I'm still paying off my medical school loans while I'm trying to plan for my own retirement and take care of my aging
Wow.
parents and put my own kids through college." And she said, "There are so many loans I would have never taken out. I would have used these more strategic ways to get it paid for." And I just want to so bring your listeners hope that there are so many cool ideas for debt-free college that nobody uses all of them. It's just, I like to say, I'm presenting a buffet that's very easy to access. You just read a chapter based on your kid's current month and year in school. And every chapter says, hey, if you can't do all this stuff, that's okay. Just do what you can, just modify or discard the rest. And there's a tremendous amount of hope, because there are a lot more ideas now in the 21st century for getting college paid for than just scholarships or financial aid or save up money in advance. The little problem is that there's not good guidance on this subject, right? The high school counselors are so busy, they are allowed to spend about 8 minutes with your kid over their entire high school career. They're not able to spend time or guide families like they really wish they could. Another thing about school counselors, I asked my friend who's a school counselor, how much time in your master's program was spent on how college is financed? She said 0. Nothing. They have no training in this. So when they're saying there's 3 ways to pay for college, they're just giving you information they remember from when they were a kid. So there is actually a lot more help, but I think people expect you to just look on the internet, but the internet is overwhelming and it's too big and it's got conflicting information. What people need is a trusted guide. I'm convinced of that.
You make a very good point, because unfortunately the internet is a great place for information. It's also a great place for misinformation. So one of the things you said that going to a 2-year community college is a great idea in getting cheap credits. But one of the things I think also people believe, and you said it's not necessarily true, is that going to a local state university can save you money. And you said they're not necessarily bargain options. And so you have good information here and a misinformation here. So tell me, why are the local state universities not necessarily a bargain?
So I hear you asking me, Jeannie, you love community college. That's funded by the state.
Right.
But you're not crazy about 4-year state universities. Why is that? Well, people look at the sticker price and they think 4-year university, that's cheap. I'm just going to force my kid to go there. But the problem with local state universities is that many times students have to wait and wait and wait to get into the classes that they need to graduate. And so because they can't get into the classes that they need, sometimes their education can drag on there for 6 years. And at 6 years, that is when it gets really, really expensive. So it can be like buying a plane ticket and then you walk down to the gate and you get continually bumped every time you try to get on the plane. That's how students feel when they're trying to sign up for classes there. So here's a great tool for your listeners. There is a website, collegedata.com. And on that website, you can just type in the name of any college or university. And they'll give you a little strip of data of all the numbers about this college university. It's all crunched out in a standardized way. Just scroll on that little strip of information and look for the 4-year graduation rate. If only 5% of kids who go to that college are able to graduate in 5 years, that's really problematic. If they're only a small, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. If only a small percentage are able to graduate in 4 years, that is really problematic. We want your kid to get in and get this education done and get out and get into the workforce. We are not in the business of giving kids a dream college. We want them to have a dream life. That's what we're looking for. And so I love for students to get through fast. This is a great strategy, getting through fast. And many students who follow me are able, by using dual enrollment college classes in high school, some of them are getting 4-year degrees very quickly by age 20, and they're out there in the workforce at that point with zero debt and hitting the ground running. Now, would you believe, Kurt, I have an article about state universities. An article at a state university may not be your bargain option. And you can find it by Googling my last name, which is Burlowski, and the word state university. And this is all completely free. This can be really helpful to a family if they're sitting down with kids and the dad is saying, oh, just go to the state university because I saw the sticker price, it's cheaper. And then the mom is trying to say, I actually heard that private schools can end up to be way, way, way less expensive if you play your cards right. Let's dig out that article by Jeannie Burlowski on the state universities, and I explain it really well there. And I just love for your listeners to be able to get all the fresh things that I'm writing about what's really, really current. And the way to do that is my free weekly email newsletter. We mentioned that, bit.ly /helpful newsletter is how people sign up for that newsletter. That's all lowercase, all one word. And you're going to have that in the show notes.
Yes.
And then anyone who signs up for that, I send out that those little 10-minute videos on how to use the book most efficiently based on your kid's age.
Okay, so let me talk to the audience just for a second. You would be so lucky if once you get out of college and you find something that you love as much as Jeannie loves what she does. I have never met anyone who has the enthusiasm and the joy of doing what you do, and that you're so kind to give so much of this information for free. I just think that's wonderful. I mean, I know it comes back to you. I know because when you do good things like that, it always comes back to you. So I'm glad to see that. But I'm sitting here listening to you and watching you, and I'm going, if people can get through college and find a job where they're as happy as you are, that's going to be a great life for them. So, because you can tell that you thoroughly enjoy what you do.
Wow, thank you. And I think you hit the nail on the head. There's an expression that people who do career coaching use, that 80% of who you are should overlap with 80% of what you do, that these things should be consistent. And we want students to find something that they're just wired to do, that they just love, that they feel good about getting up and going to work in the morning. And my heart has just broken over student loan debt, because to me, these aren't statistics appearing in US News and World Report somewhere. To me, these are the lives of real kids where I've had to look in their eyes and see tears when I had to tell them, you can't go to medical school right now because you got information that was bad about undergraduate student loan debt. And your parents were probably getting the best information that they could get their hands on, but someone really led you astray. And really burns me when people are making money off of giving people bad information. And so it's from a broken heart that I come at this. And now every time I'm able to help a family get their kid through college debt free, and they're jumping right into a career that they excel at and love. And then these kids are going on to live lives of generosity, where they're not only investing money for their own retirement or for their own future, but they're also able to give to help people that are less fortunate. I think it's a great way to change the world. It's a great way to feel like what you're doing is making a difference. And Kurt, what you're doing is making a difference here by giving me a platform to stand on, by giving me a stage to be able to get this message out. Because if there's one thing I lose sleep over, it's that there are so many families that don't know about this. Families that are just going to take in advice they find on the internet and doing the best they can. And then their kids are ending up with a lot of debt. And that's what we're trying to avoid. And you're helping me do that. So thank you.
No, it's my pleasure. That's why I decided to do a podcast. And I've been a personal trainer for more years than most people have been alive, but and I've helped a lot of people over the years. But I wanted to do something more where I could reach a bigger audience and not just help them with their health and their fitness. I wanted to help them in all areas of their life. And by having people like you on the show, I'm able to do more because of experts like you who have this ability to help them in ways I personally couldn't. All I have to do is just introduce you to them. And that's what I love about podcasting. This podcasting thing came along at the exact time it was supposed to for me, and I love what I do. So I love having guests like you on here because I know you're going to make a big difference in the lives of those of the listeners, especially those with kids. But we're going to get to those who may not have kids but may be in careers and may want to go back to school. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But before I do that, I want to ask you, so what's your what's your position on kids who don't want to go to college? Do you think all kids need to go to college? And if
Oh,
not, like if kids who maybe need to go to a trade school, are there are there steps for them to take that would benefit them, or what is your feeling on that?
oh boy. Yeah, I'm so glad that we're getting to this subject. Earlier when I talked about the career assessments, there are some kids that they do not need to go to 4-year college at all because they are going to utterly thrive in a career that only requires 2 years of technical school education. And sometimes these people are intensive care unit nurses, or they're construction managers, or they're air traffic controllers. We don't want these kids, these are careers that are much needed in this world. And we don't want these kids to spend even one day in a 4-year college that has no class at all in air traffic control. And so I would never tell families, just send your kid to technical school because it's cheaper or because they can get out and start making real money at the age of 20. What it all comes back to is, how is the kid wired and what are they going to love? And what are they just cut out to do? What's going to light them on fire when they go to work every day? And there are some kids today who would just love to be electricians. It's an actually really good job. People who are, I don't want to say, if I say the word plumber, there's a stereotypical image that comes to people's minds. But man, this is a really, really important job. Every house, every business, every office building needs to have really good plumbing. And you know what Mark Twain said? He said, for people for societies that value philosophers more than plumbers, neither their philosophy nor their plumbing is going to hold water. You have to value it all. But I'm not going to tell your kid to go and become a plumber when that he may be actually have a calling of God on his life to be a PhD researcher. And how do we figure it out? We do those career assessments, which parents who want to know about this, just get the book at the library. And I talk about it in chapter 13 about assessing the kid first. Here's what we would never do. We would never say to a kid, you're not smart enough to go to college, you could better go to trade school. We would never say that. That's insulting. It's rude. It's unnecessary. What we would say is, you're cut out for a fantastic career that only trade school, only technical school can prepare you for. So man, let's let you have at it. Now, I do have this idea, which I think is so exciting. And I have got kids that are doing this now. We talked about dual enrollment, how kids are getting 2 years of college credit right in high school. So they walk across the stage at their high school graduation, 2 years of college completely done. So what some of them are doing is, right at that moment, right after high school graduation, they go to tech school and they learn a trade, like they become an electrician or a plumber or a construction manager or something of the sort. And they just pound through that program as fast as they can. And they get through, and they're about 20 years old, and they've got a tech school degree in heating and air conditioning. They're 20 years old. They're able to go out and start making $100,000 right off the bat. They have jobs that are absolutely necessary in every area of the country. There's no place that doesn't need heating or air conditioning. You can live anywhere on the planet, essentially. And then what some of these kids are doing is saying, I think I'd like to own my own business. And I already have 2 years done of a college program, a 4-year college, 2 years already done in high school. Hey, I could just take some 4-year college classes here and there. I could focus on business, marketing, management, especially emphasis on marketing and how to get more customers. And they're busy doing their little plumber or electrician job, and they're taking classes at night at a 4-year college, finishing up a business degree with marketing and management. Then what have you got? A kid who's 22 years old, has a 4-year business degree, and all of this technical ability. And so then this is a kid who might end up with owning an electrical company where there's 20 trucks going out around the city. And this kid is living in Arizona and in a retirement community with golf courses and just managing his little trucks going out all over the city. There's tremendous potential for kids to do tech school and 4-year college both, and graduate from both debt-free at the age of 22. And guess what, Kurt? I have an article I wrote on this. It's a free article anybody can read. And it's called something about tech school both. And you can find it by Googling my last name, which is Burlowski, and the words tech school both. And you'll find where I just completely laid out this idea. And this is handy for families that are having discussions. And some families are talking about it when kids are in 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, or 12th grade, or even after that. And the family can read the article and talk about it. And it really opens up some wonderful conversations.
I'm so glad, I'm so glad that you said that. And I'm glad that you recited Mark Twain and what he said about philosophy and plumbers, or philosophers and plumbers, because I think in this society, too often we tend to judge people who don't have a 4-year degree at least, and like, oh, they went to technical school, as if somehow they're less. And I'm going to tell you, I know at least a handful of people. One became a truck driver who ended up owning his own trucking company. One became a plumber who is a millionaire because he's the only plumber on Martha's Vineyard, or at least he was at the time. And so you're right. So there's and he was happy because he loved doing what he did. The gentleman who I know, who was a client of mine, who has his own trucking company, he knew from the time he was a kid he was either going to be an engineer, a train engineer, or a truck driver. He knew it from the time he was a kid, and his teachers used to try to put him down. And
Oh,
and I was like, if those teachers only knew what this guy was going to do, to the point where he's extremely wealthy, he was smart enough, like Henry Ford was back in the day, to find people to do what he wasn't good at. So
yeah.
he knew trucking. So he found someone to do the business end of it, and it succeeded because of that. And so I think that when we put too much emphasis, as if we're somewhat hoity-toity, if you don't have a degree, then you're not worthy to look at. I know people with 4-year degrees that I seriously go, how did you even get through high school, let alone get a 4-year degree? I just don't I don't get how they have a degree at all.
And parents love their kids and they want the best for their kids. And when they want their kids to be happy, and they don't want their kids to simply shoot for a star if they should have been shooting for the moon. They want their kids to have the greatest and the best and the highest. And so in some parents' minds,
Right.
4-year college is the thing. And especially if the mother's a PhD and the father is a CEO of a company, the thought of your kid going to technical school, it just doesn't register. Some parents were told when they were kids, you're smart, you should go to college. Your friend is dumb, he should go to technical school. And that whole idea needs to be wiped off the planet. Some of your listeners have heard of Mike Rowe from the show Dirty Jobs and Somebody's Got to Do It. And he's a huge advocate. I quote him all the time. I've got articles written that lead to videos that he's done. And Mike Rowe just says our whole nation is suffering. Our infrastructure is crumbling because we sent too many kids to 4-year college just because we thought it was fancy. We thought it was cool, and we have to stop doing that, especially now that the pandemic is winding down to an end. There is going to be an explosion of a building of infrastructure, and we need kids to be in all of these different jobs. We need to stop talking as though the four-year college is the only place to go if you are a fine family. Kids can make more money, they can have less debt, and they can be happier. And I come back to this again, how do we figure out if your kid would be well suited for a career in a technical field, or if they're really going to need four-year college? We figure it out by looking at the kid, by looking at their talents and their abilities and their gifts and their interests and what are they beautifully wired for. When we set the goal for them, then we're able to plot out what's the fastest, least expensive way for them to get there. Is a technical school the way to get to that great goal, or is it four-year college? We base it on the giftedness of the kid, and every kid is gifted. There's no such thing as a kid that is too stupid. They all have something that they can train for, that they're going to love, and that is going to make a difference in this world. I am convinced of it.
I agree. I absolutely agree with you. Regardless of what path they may take, I absolutely agree with you.
And what about special needs kids?
Right.
Special needs kids also, any kid who's on an IEP in middle school or high school, this is an individualized educational program. There's a part of that IEP where the kid comes to the end of high school, there's supposed to be a plan made for what the kid is going to be doing after high school is over, and how can we help this kid to become self-supporting. And the parents can actually request that the Myers-Briggs type indicator and the strong interest inventory and the Clifton Strengths assessment be made a part of the assessing that's done at the end of the IEP process, in order to figure out what would be something good for the kid to do. And some of your listeners have heard about this kid with Down syndrome, who people would think that child is just going to live off of his parents until he's 50 years old. And this kid has a huge business where he sells socks online, and people love his socks and they buy his socks, and he's got videos of him being excited about his socks. The kids can really, even special needs kids we can figure out where's a place for them that they're going to be able to thrive and contribute to their own support.
Agreed. Let me ask you this. Let's switch gears for just a second. What is your position on homeschooling and the Clep exams? Like, what do they have special challenges because these kids are homeschooled that you wouldn't have by going to a public school or a private school?
I love homeschoolers, and I have massive numbers of homeschoolers who follow me because they know they don't have guidance counselors at the high school, that these parents are figuring it out on their own. So they love to open my free weekly email newsletter every Monday morning and say, what's Jeannie saying now? I have a tribe of parents who follow me that people find out about that if they read the free weekly email newsletter. So I love homeschoolers, and the big thing I say to them is you really need specific guidance towards debt-free college, because you don't want to put in all that the parents put in for schooling these kids at home and then find that they're not ready for college, or you're paying way too much for it. These parents, they have already typically sacrificed a one-parent income to be able to do the homeschooling. They bought all this homeschool curriculum at the conferences that they went to. We want to really protect their finances and their retirement by making sure that the kids are getting through college as close to debt-free as possible. And if anything, I don't see the homeschoolers being disadvantaged by having done a homeschool experience. I see them being advantaged. And a couple ways are their kids usually have an educational program really tailored to who they are. That's one. Another thing about homeschooling is that sometimes public school parents mistakenly believe that the school is helping the kid with college planning, and they're not. Typically, the school counselor has 8 minutes to spend with a child through 4 years. And if you're at some public school that's not operating according to that model, you are incredibly fortunate, but this is very common that we're seeing across the country because of budget cutting. Well, public school parents mistakenly assume the school's taking care of it, and they're not. Well, homeschooling parents, they know good and well the school's not taking care of it. And so they seek out resources like this. And if they've got a resource, what you can get at the library for free, and they just read one chapter every 3 months as your kids are growing up. And, there's a chapter called Summer After 8th Grade, September of 9th grade, September to December of 10th grade. So it's just a tiny little bit here and there. And every chapter says, if you can't do all of this, that's okay. Just do what you can and let go of the rest. And then you asked about Clep exams. So Clep stands for College Level Examination Program. Students are able to study one of 33 different subject areas. They can study on their own, or they can use freeclepprep.com, or they can just take the knowledge that they gained in their 8th grade class titled U.S. History from 1865 to the present. They can take this knowledge and then they take a Clep exam at one of 7,000 colleges and universities across the country. Costs about $100 or so. And if they get 50% right or so on this test, they get Clep credit. And so when they go to college, they maybe don't have to take U.S. history from 1865 to the present because they already clept out of it for only $100. And students, colleges and universities across the country will really commonly take 16 Clep credits, which can knock out a whole semester it's a whole semester. You don't have to attend. You don't have to pay for that. In Minnesota, because of a governor's order by Tim Pawlenty, former governor of Minnesota, all state universities in the Minnesota State Colleges and University System, which is in Minnesota they call it MinSCU. It's every state university except for the University of Minnesota. Anyway, they have to take unlimited Clep credits. Unlimited. So students can take a whole bunch of Clep credits and they have to transfer toward their degree.
Oh, wow.
Now I've heard some people say to homeschoolers, just have your kids just take Clep credits and then sew them together and make it look like they have a bachelor's degree. Oh, no. We are never going to do that. But you can use it as a tool to get a few free college credits.
Right. Okay, so that brings me to the question brought up a little earlier. What do you have to say to people who've been to college, or maybe not? Maybe they went right into a career. They're 30. They're like, I'm not happy with where I'm at. I want to change careers. I figured out what it is I want, or I think I figured out what I want. I need to go back to school. Is there a way for them to work, to go to school, and come out debt-free? Do you have a strategy?
Yes. And I heard this story that I just loved about a man who was a janitor at a high school. And of course, he made friends with the teachers. He's there washing the blackboards or the whiteboards after school's over. And the teacher said, I really think you would make a great teacher. I think you could go to college. And he was a custodian and he had never even thought about going to college. Maybe he had a family that made him feel like he could never go. And so he applied to college. And I hope that maybe what he did was take some community college courses first, because it's cheaper and you can do them sometimes in the evenings, on weekends, during the summer. He's some cheap community college classes and get a little 2-year associate's degree, and then transfer that to a 4-year school and go a little further and have a 4-year degree. I hope he did something like that. Anyway, the story goes he became a teacher at that school. And then he went on and got a little more education. He got a master's degree, and then he was the principal of the school. So I love that story. And for adults who are listening today and they're thinking, I am not crazy about my career. I'm not crazy about what I'm doing. I don't know if I ended up here because it's what I meant to do, or because voices from my childhood told me things about myself that I couldn't achieve, or I wasn't suitable for anything big. What I hope these people will do is consider getting the career assessments that I'm talking about. And I really clearly lay this out on chapter 13 here. Anyone can get this for free at the library. Chapter 13, I walk through these career assessments and how to use them to figure out, would teaching be good? How about nursing? Would you maybe be really a good fit for going around and selling people on things? Or what do you need a 4-year degree for what you want to do? Or could you get a little 2-year tech school degree and be able to be something that makes 3 times as much money as what you're making right now? I love for adults to set a bullseye on a target and decide, hey, I think I'd like to do this. Let's figure out the fastest, least expensive way with least amount of schooling for me to get there. And some of them will go take tech school classes or start out in community college because it's cheap and you can do it while you're working, while you have a family. And then a key thing for these adult learners is I want them right away, soon after October 1st as possible. If there's even a possibility that they will be in college the following fall or tech school the following fall, I want them to fill out that FAFSA financial aid form, FAFSA. And we consider this to be really pretty safe, and they'll crunch numbers and see if the tech school or the community college or the 4-year college can give them some money to help pay that tuition. It's really important that they go this route, because if for some reason they do need a loan, the best, cheapest loans with the best repayment terms and the lowest interest always come from filling out that FAFSA financial aid form. So that's the doorway to get in. That's what I consider it. Now, let's say that we've got someone listening and they say, I think I want to go this coming fall. I want to go to college or trade school this coming fall. Let's sign up and go. Is it too late for me to fill out the FAFSA form? And they might think I'm well past October 1st. And I say, just go ahead and fill it out. Just go ahead. Just do it this week. Let's get this show on the road. I like people to fill it out right around October 1st, because then they're first in line for the most amount of money. But if it's June or if it's even August, just fill it out and try and see what you could possibly get. And then one other piece for your learners, for your listeners, on page 272 of Launch, which, Kurt, anyone can get for free at the library. Just ask the librarian to order it for you. On page 272, I have outlined a process where families can look at the amount of money the college is offering. Hey, we're going to help you out. We're going to help you pay your tuition. We're going to give you this, this, and this. And I outline a process where you can actually go to that college financial aid office and you can say, this isn't enough. I need more money. And the pandemic has been hard. We lost our job. We have high medical bills. This financial aid form made us look wealthier than we really are. We have aging parents we're taking care of. We have our plumbing exploded in our house because there's a plumber shortage in the United States. You can go into the school and you can make an appeal. And the one national study said that 50% of appeals like this actually resulted in more money to help pay for college. One college kid went in and he did this and he was just convinced he wasn't going to get anything. But he just did it kind of as a formality, walked out with $30,000 extra to help pay his college bills. So that information starts in here on page 272. And a lot of parents use this when their kids are seniors in high school, but adults who are also trying to finance college can use that exact same information for themselves.
So even young adults, let's say because I know I have quite a few young adult listeners out there who are going to be in their early 20s. Let's say they didn't go to college, they don't live at home, they're working at maybe a little bit better than a minimum wage job, and they go, I don't want to be stuck here. I wish I would have gone to school, but I didn't. But is it too late for them, or can they use the same strategies as the adults who already have careers? Or is there a slightly different strategy for them? Are there programs for them that because they're younger? Or
I would would say and I hear you asking me, what about the kids that are in their early 20s? Does the same advice I just gave for the older worker, does it apply to them? And absolutely yes, exactly what I just said for the person in their 40s, the janitor at the school who thinks he might like to be a teacher. Everything applies, even for the students who are 20 or 22 or 23. And whether they're living at home with their parents or they're living in an apartment with roommates, it doesn't make any difference. I say, students, you still got parents who love you and care about you. Ask them for your birthday or Christmas if they'll give you this career assessing that I've been talking about, that I really discuss in detail in chapter 14, or I'm sorry, chapter 13. You can get this for free at the library. And remember that the lady that I think is just fantastic for the career assessing, I sent my own kids to, and I paid full price. I get nothing for telling you this. She's on the top of the approved consultants tab at jeannieburlowski.com, and you could just sit down with her. She works over Zoom with people all over the country, and she'll give you a huge burst of confidence. Like here's what you're good at. Here's what you're amazing at. These are your strengths. Your personality type would help you to be able to do this and this and this. And sometimes the reason that students haven't really pursued anything is it could be that their particular personality type isn't really valued by their family. Like, here's an example. The family is a whole bunch of outgoing, talkative, loud people. And this is a kid who's introverted and quiet and likes deep thought and sitting with thick books. And so they make him think like he's a bonehead. Like, what? You can't talk to people? Why do you go to your room when grandma comes over? We're all talkers. That's what we value in our family. And you sit with this lady, Cindy Matson, and she says, do you know that you actually have an incredible gift, and it's called deliberative? And your dad doesn't have this, and he doesn't even understand what it is. But here's why you would be amazing at a job related to cybersecurity. You already love computers. You have this ability where you can scout ahead for danger and figure out what danger's coming and keep everybody safe. Man, you would be amazing at this. And the kids are just blossoming in front of this kind of an experience. And I got to emphasize this. Some students are really against doing this because they had lame, terrible career assessing at the high school, where they were good in science and math, and the assessment came back and said, you should be a bartender, or you should be a lumberjack. And the kids are just laughing like, this is ridiculous. And so I just have to tell students, what I am prescribing for you is real human contact, and it is very different from the negative experience you had in high school. So give it a chance, and let that be your first step on a road that could go somewhere really fantastic.
I think that one piece of advice right there is worth its weight in gold, honestly. Because again, as I said earlier, to be able to find out what it is you truly are good at and what you truly love, you just can't put a price on that, honestly.
Right. You can't put a price on that. That can change a person's life. It can change their confidence level, their view of themselves. So students, tell your parents that you want this for a birthday present or a Christmas present, because your parents are sitting around worried about you. They will give up coffee for 6 weeks to be able to pay the bill for the career assessing. It's totally worth it.
Now, or you could do this, because my next question was going to be about grandparents. You could ask your grandparents, but what else can grandparents do to help out? I mean, what kind of strategies can they use for their grandchildren?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked this. Well, grandparents can be an influence over their grandchildren's lives, perhaps by checking this book out at the library and then saying to parents, there are some really cool ideas in here. And some grandparents actually say to the parents, I know you're busy. How about if I work on a couple debt-free college strategies with Bradley? It'll be our little project that we do together. And the parents are like, amazing, that would be great. One thing some grandparents do is they instead of giving a gift, and let's say you've got grandparents listening to you here who've got kids that are babies, or they're in utero, or they're toddlers, or maybe they're middle schoolers or high schoolers. Some grandparents who are accustomed to giving gifts will give a box. And in the box, there's a letter that says, I'm so proud of you. I love you so much. I'm proud of what you've accomplished this last year. Here are some Bible verses that have meant a lot to me in my life that I hope will bless you. Here are some stories about my own life and pieces of advice that I have valued. Here's a picture of you and me together. And then the grandparent says, I have opened a college savings plan for you, and I put a little money in there to save for your future college education. And here's the thing, grandparents, you don't have to tell anybody how much it was. Even $10 is very generous. And so you tuck this away in a little college fund, and some grandparents will actually go to a financial advisor and open a 529 college savings plan. Grandparents, if you're going to do that, open it in your own name with the child named as beneficiary. This protects their future financial aid eligibility. And so grandparents are just tucking away a little bit of money in this account for birthdays and Christmas. And it's not like you can't give other gifts too. You can give a sweater or a little race car track or whatever you want to give. But for some families, this letter from grandma becomes just the highlight of the birthday that makes everybody cry. And it's continually sending the kid the message, you are worth investing in, even if it's only $10 each time. And grandparents have lots of questions about this, like, what if I die and the kid hasn't gone to college yet? What happens to the money? Would my estate have to pay tax on it? Grandparents wonder, what if I get sick and I need to raid this fund to get money to pay for my medicine? Can I get the money back? Yes, you can. What if I pay someone's college tuition and I pay more than $14,000 of it in a year? Could I be hit with a gift tax? And I don't provide tax advice. I direct you to a tax professional or a financial advisor for that. But I can tell you the news is all good. And I have a resource. Guess what, Kurt? I wrote an article on this for grandparents that explains this. And some parents get this article and then they say to the grandparents, why not read this article? What do you think of this idea? Parents say, I heard it really builds relationship with the kids, and it builds your influence with the kids, whether you live around the corner or around the globe from these kids, whether they're just born or whether they're off in college right now. Why don't you read this and see what you think? And so anyone can find it by Googling my last name, which is Burlowski, and the word grandparents. And in that article, I explain all this. I explain this whole strategy. And in that article, there is a little fact sheet. You just put in your email address, and I send you this fact sheet that answers all the grandparent questions about 529 plans and their tax implications.
I have a feeling people are going to be Googling your name and just putting in random words.
Which is funny because if you Google the words Burlowski and both, BOTH, you find this fantastic article on how to do tech school and a 4-year degree both. So yeah, that would be really funny. Boy, you have been so generous to spend all this time with me here today.
No, listen, again, I find you to be very generous with your time and helping people out. I just think it's amazing that you're willing to do this and help people out, because again, everything that you've said is free. Like, you're not even telling people, hey, go buy my book. No, you said, hey, you can go to the library and librarians will order this for you if you need to. So I just think that's absolutely amazing on your part. I just had one more question, because I know I know what the answer is going to be, but I want to ask anyway. When should I know that it's never too late, but when should parents start thinking about college for their kids?
Okay. Well, optimally, what I would love, if possible, I actually have a chapter in here that is titled 7th grade or earlier. And this is strategies that people can use in 7th grade or even younger. Starts on page 23, and it's just some ideas that can set people up for really a fantastic life. And I want to just give you some examples of things that are in here. One is ask relatives to reconsider gift giving. And right here on page 23, I talk about this grandparent strategy. For a lot of parents, it is really stressful how grandparents handle the gift giving. For some families, the grandparents come over to the house and they bring 70 presents and they leave a gigantic mess of wrapping paper and ribbons, and it's stressful. And the mother doesn't even know where to put all this stuff away. And having this conversation about what would you think about writing a letter, putting it in a box, and take the money you were going to spend on the gifts and just put it in a college savings plan. Nobody has to know how much it was. Even $10 is generous. And it can, that's one of the strategies that's in this chapter called Seventh Grade or Earlier, because it's a great strategy if you got a 2-year-old or a baby that's not born yet, or a newborn. The earlier you start this strategy, the more fun it is. Another one that's in here is get out of debt yourself, parents. Use some strategies and some assistance and some help to get out of debt yourself, because if you are out of debt yourself by the time your kids go to college, you are in a much better position to be able to help them.
Right.
And kids will worry about you less, parents, if you have good financial solvency on your own. So I would love for parents to get this from the library for free prior in 7th grade or earlier. But for anyone who's got kids 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, wherever you are right now, that's completely okay. We just want you to start where you are now and move forward from here with some great strategic help. And I know we're kind of winding up here. And so I want to come back again to I don't want to be just a shooting star of inspiration. I want to be your partner on this journey. And the way that I do that is through my free Monday morning email newsletter. It always has a helpful article in it. And anyone can subscribe by going to bit.ly/helpful newsletter. That's all lowercase, all one word. And that's exactly where you sign up. And then you'll start getting my free weekly email newsletter next Monday morning.
Well, I want to thank you again. And folks, listen, if you're thinking of going to college, if you have kids that you're thinking about putting through college, if you have friends that you know have kids who are going to go to college, sign up for Jeannie's newsletter, get her book launch. Even if you go to the library and get it for free, go check out her website, jeannieburlowski.com, right? Okay.
Yes.
And all the other links that I'll have down in the bottom at the bottom of the show here. Click on there, get with her if you have any questions, and let her help you out, because if you can save, you know, I mean, just like I said, from the advice that you've given, just to go get an assessment, the proper assessment can save people thousands and thousands of dollars. So again, I appreciate what you do, and I appreciate your generosity, and just thank you so much for spending the time with us and being on the show.
Well, it's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, glad to have you. All right, folks, that's going to be our show for today. Until next time, take care, be safe, and you know the drill. Wear your mask.